As agency owners, weekends is like treasure time to like do what you want to do.
I hated it.
Or doing the podcast.
Yes,
Oh,
podcast.
I'm honored. How did Insane happen?
It happened, dude. There was no plan. I developed a few websites. I realized that people need marketing. That's how I got into marketing. What happened is I figured out a problem after problem, and I kept on solving it, and things kept on working.
Also, very curious to know why is it called Insane? Yeah.
Because we chase to be that. We work towards putting out absolute best. We feel that we are better than others, to be honest.
Nobody really has a plan. Everyone has their own problems. Like grass is always greener on the other side.
Don't look at the grass.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, what's your ambition from that lens? Like, do you see Insane becoming 200, 300, 400?
Insane is gonna be extremely big. So I don't know the numbers. We are evolving. We are not gonna be performance agency. We are gonna be the brand builders. We are getting into social as well.
Oh, nice.
My aim is to grow it to 100 million now.
Well, how much are you right now?
We'll talk about it off podcast.
Okay. Aman, thanks a lot, man. For
Thanks a lot, man.
Coming on a Saturday for doing this. I know how
Yeah, dude.
as agency owners we don't really get time, so
Yeah.
weekends is like
The time.
treasure time to like do what you want to do.
I hate it, dude.
What, the time?
What doing this?
Or doing the podcast or just
Yes,
like, oh, wow.
podcast.
I'm honored. Right. But I've never had a agency owner on the show before. And I've been, technically I have, but I think you've been doing this for
For a while.
maybe a while, and I've known you for majority of that journey, I think.
Yes.
And it's been great to see your evolution along with, realizing how we have evolved here at Virality too. So really glad we could make time and do this.
Yeah.
I remember meeting you for the first time, I think in 2018.
I guess when Balu was here.
Yeah, when Balu was still
I came
working.
to ask for mentorship, dude.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah, that's what.
I thought it was just meeting, exchanging
No, dude.
ideas, figuring
Okay,
out.
Balu never told you this.
Oh, no, he
Oh
didn't.
yeah, I came to ask for mentorship then.
Really?
Yeah, 100%.
But I think you ended up spending more time that day with Karan than with me.
Well, you were busy, dude.
Yeah, or with Vaishak, I think, who was the back then.
Oh
part of
yes,
that. Both of them were more media performance centric than I was.
Yeah.
I think I'm more creatively involved
Yes.
than those guys were. But I think you spent more time with them that day.
Yeah. I was talking to Karan about Facebook ads and all. That's what the big thing was for me then.
Yeah.
But yeah.
It was a different time when I think.
It's been time. Shit.
Yeah. Platforms back then, you really had to be good at it. Now I think there's a bit of assistance from tools, and I think the dashboard and everything's evolved too, right? So you don't. I think that back then, I think the skill required absolute purist approach into understanding how things worked. Also, it's very early stage. I think agencies like us at that time who were operating were the ones who were figuring it out.
Yes.
And I think today that's turned into principles and concepts, but back then it was just hard.
We were trying to understand what's working.
Yeah. So I remember that interaction, and then I think.
Oh, you remember?
Yeah. But then I think I came in and then we spoke for a bit, but we
Okay.
didn't have a big conversation then.
Yeah.
But subsequently, I think we've gone on to have.
I
a lot of
wonder if
conversation.
we could have really sat.
That day.
Yes.
For?
I wonder how would the universe would have been.
I
don't know.
if it would have been too different, honestly.
Oh, no.
For in what sense?
I mean, if we would have hung out
Right.
since then, I think things
Possibly.
could have been different.
Maybe for you or
Maybe.
for me.
Who knows? For me, for sure.
Right.
Yes.
I don't know. I think in the early days I was like even today I am, but I think back then I was razor sharp focused on just work.
Yeah.
Also, I think the nature of work was that you didn't have time for anything else. So I've gone through those 2-3 years, at least until COVID, very easily doing 12 hours a day.
Shit, man.
Yeah. And
Yes. You're a hard worker.
yeah, but not by choice though, but
Oh.
I think that was a circumstance.
Fair, dude.
But I think those days were like that. So I think most people who know me from that period between 2017 to 20 have this thing to
Notion
say
that-
the fact that they didn't get enough time with me.
Shit.
Yeah, so
No, this would have been work only, right?
yeah.
We would have connected for work, nothing else,
100%.
right? Like, at least that's the primary,
Yeah.
but maybe it never happened. So
Yeah.
it's a
Also,
wonderland.
I think the business model that you had was slightly different from ours. I think back then.
Yes, we were doing D2C.
Yeah, exactly.
We were doing well.
Yeah,
I
for
just
sure.
didn't know how to scale it.
Yeah, we'll get into that.
Yes.
But like, I'm curious to know what the life before all of this was. What's the origin story in terms of
Very happy.
where did you grow up? Where was the childhood like? Where did you study?
Oh yeah,
I
sure.
don't know if we've discussed this. If we have, I
No.
don't remember. So
So I'm born in now called a place now called Ayodhya, but it was Faizabad
wow.
before the rename. But my childhood was in this small town called Gopalganj in Bihar. When I was 10 to 12, we shifted to Lucknow, UP. I went to study for 6 months to Manipal in Udupi, dropped out to start the company. And that's how it happened. And when I started the company, eventually I moved to Bangalore. So
What age were you when you dropped out and wanted to start?
So I dropped out to start a game company. So I developed 2 games. It would be, I don't know, 2021 or maybe 1920.
And what year was this?
6 months into college. I dropped for 1 year. I also repeated a class. So I was 2 years slower than others in college, but I dropped out in 6 months to start this.
Right. What year was this? 2000.
10, 11.
Okay. Well,
Yeah. Bad memory.
understood. And that first startup was something in tech.
So yeah, I made 2 games, one for Android, one for then Facebook games, if you remember.
Right.
And once I developed a game on Facebook which I wanted to promote, I didn't know what to do with it.
Right.
So that's how. And I had a lot of pages. I knew how to grow pages, and I collaborated with a lot of people to almost have 15 million followers then, which I wanted to promote my game in. But as soon as the game, so in the morning I completed the game, dude. And we went out to celebrate 2-3 people. We designed the game entirely. We came back in the evening and I saw all my pages got unpublished. So I had almost 30-35 pages. All of them got unpublished by Facebook because I was spamming on them.
So you violated some guidelines?
Oh yeah,
some
100%.
policy?
Yes.
But so what? You over promoted the game?
I didn't even start promoting them.
Right.
I would promote spammy stuffs.
Right.
Which would make me money,
Right,
but not entirely would be.
Understood.
It was not illegal,
Right.
but it was not according to the guidelines of
Right,
Facebook or Google or in general internet.
Right.
So there was a lot around data and also.
And this is back in the day when if your page gets unpublished, you have absolutely no idea what to do to get it back up. Right?
Yes. So it never came back.
Right. Yeah, rightfully so.
Yeah.
Little off topic, but this has happened with so many small agencies and businesses in that period where Facebook was like a black box, right? You couldn't get into, you didn't know what the guidelines were. You just worked on hunch. And number of times ad accounts would get blocked, pages would get unpublished, or some other problem would have. You'd absolutely be helpless, right? With not knowing what to do. So I can imagine. So like overnight, I think your perceived idea of business probably went away.
Yes. So I was excited because I know I have 15 million people, and that time you'll get 30% reach, 35% reach.
Yeah.
So you would hit immediately. That with one post, my game was supposed to be viral. Right? That's what the idea was. I didn't even do one post. So now my game was like, I didn't know what to do after that because that's the entire marketing I understood. Make the pages and promote it, which still exists, by the way, right? With this is distribution era.
Couldn't you do anything else with the game? Like, was it only meant for Facebook as a platform?
So you understand, like, if you really hung out with techies, you realize they don't know shit about marketing.
Yeah,
I was a techie. Those pages was like, so I've been always good in bringing people together. So I could bring people who would post on the page. I could hack how to grow the page, but I would not do it. So those pages were gone. I didn't know what else to do. And back then, the mindset was not like this, let's figure it out. Like I sort of got disappointed and then moved on to next thing. So, but I should have tried it.
Yeah.
Now that I think of it.
So where's the game now? Any scope for it?
I have no idea. The Android game would be outdated like anything. I don't even think like they have it's even published. I don't even think I've never logged in to see what happened to that game. And Facebook game was on a server. That server got expired long back, so there's no data or nothing. And I never was good in keeping data very
Data
structured.
together. Right, fair. So how did Insane happen from there? And I'm also very curious to know, why is it called
Insane?
Yeah.
Shit, okay. That's a good question. So from there, I realized I don't know marketing. I had no money after that. I dropped out and I was not making any money. My family had pulled hands. So I had to figure out money. So I ended up joining an NGO
Okay.
and I helped them build their marketing and web team in next 1 year.
What did the NGO do?
So they were into animal welfare.
Okay.
So we'll cover stories of injured animal, how they would bring in solve for that, and
Right.
so that was the entire narrative on the page, which will grow. And I would build the team basically. Right. So I built the team. I brought in the people. 1 year after 1 year, I left that to start a company called Insane Developers.
Okay.
So before marketers, there was developers. I would go out and make people's website on WordPress. That's how I started the first agency business. And there was a period when I was doing Android app development business, marketing business, drop shipping. Mostly, I think these four. I developed a few websites. I realized that people need marketing. That's how I got into marketing. So, after Insane Developers, there was 2 years phase where I would grow Instagram pages of people. I'll do a very simple hack of follow and follow to help people gain followers. And actually, I use that method to grow my own pages. So I have some 7-8 pages on Instagram, which has combined followers of 3 million.
Nice.
And I still have them. Nice. Those are all pet pages. I'm looking for a co-founder in that, content co-founder, telling on podcasts if someone wants to. So my aim is to grow it to 100 million now. But it was on stale for last 3-4 years. I never paid attention to it. I have a co-founder in that who keeps posting a bit, but we don't really have a solid strategy going. From there, we transitioned into Facebook. We realized Facebook ads is the future.
And this was 2016?
So 2018 is when we got the first client. And this is 91 Springboard.
Right. And before this was more of...
before Insta marketers.
Right.
The Insane was there, but we were not actively working on it. The operations of Insane started in 2018.
Oh, right.
First we got Springboard, then we got 91... first we got Springboard, then we got Mamaearth. And Mamaearth was our big break. Yeah. Right? So that's which built our brand.
Right.
So we grew Mamaearth. We got a lot of other brands like Vadam, M Caffeine, and all of other brands who came. And eventually towards the end of 2019, we realized we need to focus because we are going into many ways, and we decided to go for coaching. And that's how coaching happened. And since last 3-4 years, we did well in that.
Got it. I always thought when I met you, you were already in the business for about a year or so.
So I like
in the core.
I think we met in 19 then.
Did we?
Or maybe 18.
I assumed. Oh, actually, even I don't know now. When my memory is hazy.
So then maybe Springboard is 17 then.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. But Mama definitely came in Feb 9, 2018.
Okay.
Yeah, that I remember vividly.
Yeah. No, I think we met after that for sure.
Okay. After Mama.
Yeah.
So because maybe late 18 we met.
Yeah, because I remember hearing about Mamaearth for the first time, and I was curious of this D2C brand. And then I was looking up, and I think at that time I met you as well around that time, and we were exchanging. I think I remember being that first conversation. But they've scaled. I think they've become crazy big now.
Oh yeah. So even when we were with them, they did really well. Crazy people. I met Varun. He had clear vision since the start. So insane what he has said.
Right.
100%.
Did you see any of that signs in the early days? Like in terms of was it a sure? Some brands when you work with, you know they're going to succeed, and there are some brands that when you work with, you like may or may not.
I look back and now I see the signs. I could not identify those then. Right. I was young. I was still trying to figure things out. So I was very much in my own mind. But now I see that he was extremely focused on what he was going to do. He had the plan in his head then, what he's supposed to do. So, and he was extremely great executor. So, yeah.
Right. Just going a few steps back, that decision to start an agency, right? I remember there was a phase when a lot of such digital agencies popped up, and I think right until COVID and even after, a lot of youngsters even today try to start out an agency because uh, I think the barrier to entry is very limited. And
100%.
it's very easy right now, right? Not
Yes,
like back
yes.
in the day when you needed media partnerships with your newspapers and magazines to release ads or to do media. So that process is sort of changed, and I think as a result, a lot more entrepreneurs are born,
Yeah.
which is great. But what was that early stage like for you? Like, was there an idea saying, like, a lot of founders base the company on their core skill. So if you are a performance marketer, then by default the company's DNA is that way,
Is that
right?
Yeah. Okay.
A lot of reasons why virality is more social is because that's my
That's your
genesis, or
Sure.
my DNA comes from there.
Interesting. Okay.
What was that like for you? So did you base it on your skill, or was it a team that was there around you? How did you look at it?
It happened, dude. There was no plan.
Right.
There was no design. It's not that because I was good in performance, I'll do the agency. I realized this is something which seems like a future.
Mm.
There is a gap. Let's do it. So we did it, and we figured it out.
But there must be something if you've been able to scale from there to millions of dollars in revenue. The way, in terms of where you're sitting now, certain things must have come together. But can you map it out? And like, did you have a goal in year one saying we would do this, or year two?
So what happened is I figured out a problem after problem,
Okay.
and I kept on solving it,
Mm.
and things kept on working.
Mm. Right. It's not too different from my story too.
100%. I'm
It's-
pretty sure.
Yeah,
Yes.
because you don't have reference or you don't have mentorship from people who have done it. And I think
Yes. I,
one of the
I
worst
asked
things.
people, but they ignored.
Yeah, I didn't ask, but over time I figured that in our line of work, mentorship is actually a problem, because I think everyone's understanding of marketing is varied. So it's biased from their point of view. Like if I were to give you advice, I'll give you from my point of view how I see the business.
Sure,
It may not
yeah.
be exactly the way you see it. So it's a lot like personal branding, right? Like I believe in personal branding, you can't copy or imitate somebody. There's always a ceiling that you'll hit. So by nature of not being structured, by nature of being unique and different and weird, for a lack of better term, you are being uniquely yourself too. So I feel our business is also a bit like that. Well,
It's an extension of our personas for sure.
right.
Yeah. So you see this, right? You see that people or this company is very much extension of you, your personality.
Good. So I met a brand strategist, okay, in 2018.
Yeah.
He gave me this beautiful line, which I hold very dear now. And then 2 years later, I met some other people who said it may not necessarily be that way too. And both schools of thought work very fine. But what he told me was, he said a brand is always an extension of its promoter, which means that how a business's value systems are created and how they operate is very much an extension. It's top down.
Yes.
At the same time, I think in today's day and age, a lot of brands are being created at a very fast pace. So they don't necessarily follow that rule either, because it's growth at all costs for a lot of them.
Yes.
Right. So I think a lot of brands are based on their promoters and a lot of brands are not. And I think both work. There's no hard and fast rule. That's why I said there is no reference point. There is no mentorship required from you to me or me to you or anybody else, because if you have conviction in what you're building and if you're able to set goals and hit them, whatever those goals might be, it could be revenue based, people based, value based, whatever it might be, then I think you're doing fine. So a lot of entrepreneurs complicate that, especially early stage when you're building something that you don't have. I actually am guilty of that, where I went in the early days and met a lot of other entrepreneurs, asking them these questions. And anyone who I felt was in the agency world, I would hound them for time to understand how did they look at it, what is their experience like, what is this process, and how does Ogilvy write its marketing briefs versus how does a Merkle Socrates, for that matter, run their campaigns, or how the systems and teams are structured. I have done deep dive.
Right.
I still do to an extent, where I pull out everyone's financials, like their tax filing papers, to look at what the structure of the business is, at what numbers they are like. So I have that data, which I do today from a business perspective. But I think after a lot of that 7 years of soul searching and information searching in that sense,
Yeah.
I think I've come to a realization that nobody really has a plan.
Oh, yeah.
And nobody really has a
We all
formula.
are equally fucked up.
Yeah. Everyone has their own problems, and like grass is always greener on the other side.
Yes.
So you're always trying to, and if you keep looking on the other side, you will see that it's greener, and you will judge and build insecurity. So
Yeah.
I've just thrown that out of the window. Like I'm building it in the way that I like
Don't
it.
look at the grass.
Yeah, absolutely. In all ways.
Never look down. Look up.
Yeah.
Sky is same.
Yeah. So just cut out all that thing, and like it doesn't matter who's doing what. I think I just love the process. So just build it in a way that you enjoy the process. So, and I think that's again a thing that a lot of agency owners don't address, because I don't think there's been a single agency owner that I've met at some point, including myself, who's not thought about shutting down their company. Fact.
Yeah, 100%.
Absolute fact.
Yes,
Like
with you.
I have spoken to like
But I think
folks,
that's true for any company.
uh,
Not any company.
maybe.
I mean, like even the best of best cry, right? Because it becomes so. I think agencies are still simpler. It's very operationally heavy.
Yeah. And that's
But
where I come
yes.
from. Some businesses are operationally heavy, and some businesses, on top of being operationally heavy, are very human capital dependent. And unlike any other forms of capital, human capital has its own brain. So it's sometimes difficult to align everybody together, especially like when you're in your 20s and you're trying to build a business like that.
Yeah,
It's hard.
Yeah, you have no shit idea what you're
Yeah,
doing.
because you don't have self-awareness.
Yes.
A lot of people haven't figured themselves out where you don't.
But
And
do you consider yourself self-aware?
no one's ever fully self-aware, but I think
you
there
practice.
are certain things I know I'm quite aware of myself. Like I think I know what makes me happy and what makes me sad in micro scenarios,
Oh shit! Wow.
not in macro. Like if you ask me what should I do for 2 years to make myself happy, I don't have an answer. But if you ask me what is your hack to be happy today, I have an answer for that.
Oh,
So
how? Tell me.
I think it's basic things about just doing more things in a day that you like than that you don't like. Luckily, I like work, so it doesn't feel like a burden, which is I think a great.
What if
blessing.
you don't like anything?
Luckily, I've never been in that scenario.
Shit, crazy.
So I think touchwood. I don't know
Touch
what it
wood,
is,
good.
but I've just
But
been
crazy, yes.
blessed with the fact that I've not
No,
spent
no.
too much time sulking, or I don't regret things.
So you enjoy running the show?
Yeah, I think if I think if I don't have challenge and if I'm not pushed, I would feel depressed.
Interesting.
Reverse, right?
No, I love it.
Yeah,
That's
like I
a
need hard work.
Great way to look at this.
Like if I go back home and if I feel like I've not worked hard that day,
Shit.
it's kind of hard to sleep. Like I'm a little different. I like to earn my day in that sense.
So every day for you is like you have to produce. You have to feel that you've done.
So it was the case early days in the mid 20s when if I didn't do 12 hours, I would feel like I have not pushed myself. Yeah, a little bit like that. Right.
Okay.
And there's also an inert competitiveness. So you wouldn't want to see somebody else work harder than you. But at the same time, there's also a balance in that saying when if I see someone's compromising sleep, like we keep talking about this internally to the team. Karan actually learned performance when he was here by himself out of curiosity.
Yes.
And then we entered into performance as a service, as a business.
Yes.
So if he wasn't curious to learn, I may not have bet on him to be able to offer that as a service.
Right.
And it was just circumstantial that way in terms of how it came
Karan is
together.
damn good.
Yeah, he is. I think he's
Shit.
the greatest I've met on platform.
Whoa.
Like hands down.
Shit, dude.
On platform, he's the greatest.
Wow, dude.
Yeah. Like
Insane.
I've worked with quite a few people. So
I'm
and
sure
I think that and it's not
feels that way.
Yeah. So he's gifted in two ways. One is he understands numbers better than anybody else. Like one of his skills is the fact that he doesn't need to save your phone number. So he does not save phone numbers. He by hearts them forever.
He remembers numbers.
Yeah.
Phone numbers.
Yeah. So Karan does not save numbers.
There is some voodoo there.
There is,
I
but
don't believe
he's a finance guy. So like
Shit,
before joining us, he was in the finance field at Ernst & Young
Insane.
and so forth. So he has that sort of a understanding of or comfort with numbers, and he's been dealing with numbers for ages. So even when I'm sitting and like we're watching cricket and I need to calculate the net run rate, I'm like, dude, 25 overs, this many wickets. What do you think? And I think I'm also decent with numbers. But I would prompt, like I would get to, like if I have to do a math on a equation on something, I'll get into a range and I'll say the answers between this and this.
Have you seen that movie where it's on stock crash?
The Big Shot.
The Big Shot.
Yeah.
There's a math guy in that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a bit like that.
Yeah.
So,
The
so
only eyes are different, but
possibly, right? In fact, one of those guys looks like him. The guy who acted as Kendall in Succession.
Oh yes,
Yeah.
Kendall. Shit.
Yeah, looks a lot like him. We can make more fun of that. For
Crazy.
that, but yeah,
Succession is great show. But yeah.
it is. So yeah, so just coming back. So I think he picked that up, and as a result of which we started. But the reason he picked that up was his work ethic. Now he would compromise his sleep, wake up at 3 a.m. every night, do a seminar for 2 hours, learn about performance, go back to sleep. Like that's how he learned it. Now would I do that? Tough. But then I wouldn't beat myself for it because I can't get up in the middle of the night for education.
Seminar, yeah.
I'm not wired that way, but he is. And that level of hard work would mean he probably does more hours than me. But I'm okay with it because I know that if I try to do that, I will burn out. And that's not worth it, right? So that self-awareness I have to compare between like what is good for me versus what is not. And it's hard in your early days. And I think only way to build that is by actually trying more things. So this is another thing that I've realized, at least for us, a lot of people who have tried things in the past and failed make great hires at Virality. Because I think when you fail, you don't realize, but you tend to get mature.
Yeah, 100%.
Right? Adversity quotient builds maturity.
Yes.
And a lot of that contributes to the work because in our line of work, every day is chaos because something isn't going the way that you wanted or the client wanted. And then you have to figure it out.
Shit.
So if you're able to do that, then you will be successful in this line of work.
Fair. So do you really see people what they have failed in when you're hiring people? I know that you talk to someone every day. That's something I'm picking up.
Talk to who? Like the teams?
No, obviously teams, but like for interviews.
Yeah, not every day. I think I've cut that down, but like I do about average between 3 to 5 minimum a week.
Okay, sure.
Like today I have 2 after this.
Oh wow.
So back to back.
Shit, dude. I'll not work today after this.
But
I'll not get inspired by this.
Yeah, really. But I have my own hacks. Like I do 3 interviews in 1 hour, so it's 20 minutes each.
Okay.
And then I have now because I've been doing it for so long, I have a set template in my head in terms of
20 minutes you have this gut feeling that this is it.
10 minutes I know.
10 minutes
generally. 10 minutes I know personality. Then the skill level is the next.
Get deeper.
Yeah, but of late I realized that it also depends on roles. Now, for example, I'm not that good if I have to hire for core creative skills.
Yeah.
Like let's say art or video, I may not do that well than I'm good at in terms of say a strategy role or a client facing role or even writing. Copy I still
you have your own strengths which you can
correct.
Like
even on performance because I've actually never run a Google campaign in my life. So I've never opened the Google dashboard to run a campaign.
Sure, okay.
But I've done on Meta.
Sure.
So if I have to judge somebody, technically, I can't. So there again, I have limitations. So then I tag somebody into it saying, this is how somebody else would do round 1, I would do round 2. We would figure it out that way. But in our line of work, you have to do that because it's a people business. So you have to constantly keep figuring out who's fit and who's not. And it's crazy. It's crazy.
So I also understood this, dude. So I realized that first round should be expert round. Like they should spend 40 minutes, 50 minutes talking to the person.
Right.
Sometimes I make it more like a panel. So I'll also bring, so if I'm, let's say hiring an art director, right? So I'll bring another art director plus maybe a copywriter just to get different perspective in the panel. And when those 3-4 people in the panel collaboratively agree that this is the person we want to bring in, that's when I talk to them.
Right.
It works for me very well.
Got it. How many people would you put into a panel for an interview? Like
I've not fixed the number, but I'm learning more and more that it's more group discussion and rather than one-on-one interviews. And people also love it when they talk to groups. Like in general, if the team is curious and the other person who is talking to us, so a rate of people are taking lesser salaries to join us
because of the quality of interactions.
Because the quality of interaction there.
Interesting.
So,
but do you know that they have a competing offer and?
Well, you get the vibe from people, right? I'm pretty sure they would get the offer, but they're choosing us over others because.
Right. So, have you seen a difference in face-to-face interviews
100%.
versus, is that better?
Oh yes, 100%.
So would you replicate the same model of having a panel?
Yes.
Got it.
Yeah. So we were remote for the longest time. 2-3 days ago, I announced in the company will go hybrid now.
You're still hybrid, but
So we have Bangalore hybrid,
right.
But we still have a lot of people from Delhi, Mumbai, and other places.
Right.
But we are bringing them together in a place now.
I think that's so we've never been remote ever. Partly because I think, again, I don't know if I should say it.
No, say it.
But
I mean,
so initially I would say that I don't believe in the remote model, because if you aren't interacting on day-to-day basis, somewhere you aren't fighting battles together, right?
Agreed.
Now that's a point of view.
Yes.
But over time, what I realized is, if top-down few people in the organization have that belief,
yes,
then even if you have the greatest systems built for remote work, it wouldn't succeed, because it's a ideological issue top-down, or ideological approach top-down.
Yeah. That's what happened.
Yeah. And I think for us, all of the key people in the organization love working in presence of people.
Yes.
And they're okay with sometime being remote. But I think one of the things we realized in that 1.5 months of the first COVID lockdown is everyone was eager to return to office. And I had to stop people saying, hey, no, we'll take a call, etc. But before I know it, everyone's in. And then I had to create a alternate day policy just for their safety, right? But while I was here. And I think over time, I just realized it doesn't work. And I realized that's the culture that we have, where everyone likes to come work face to face, blah, blah, so that worked for us from that sense.
I agree. That's what it took me time to see, but fair.
Right. So, by the way, I don't think that one is better than the other. If you're getting results out of remote work, then I think yours is a great case studies, right? I have done in person all through 365, not 365, but in theory.
Sure, yeah. It was, yeah.
And whereas you have actually done the reverse, where for the longest time you were remote. And I think there's been considerable success on both ends.
So, what we did is we were able to attract really smart people, right? What didn't happen is the two things you said. One, people didn't feel like they were working together. So, my fundamental of working with people is that they should feel happy working. They should love it, and they should come, and they would want to come for the work, right? That never got penetrated in remote. It became more and more work rather than a place where people come, hang out, and do things, right? Second, the vision was not penetrating. Still, we did well because people were smart. Right? We were able to attract good people. When we started experimenting the idea of working together in an office, we saw a sudden shift in energies in everyone's, right? So that's where I started realizing that to build a really great company, you got to work together, right? And now I'm really excited where we're heading. I think what we have achieved is gonna feel very small when looking back 5 years from now, 10 years from now, because now team has started working together, which never happened, and it's insane.
Right. So what's the average age of your team?
27, 28 people.
And
yes,
during the heights of COVID, that phase, what was back
23, 24.
then? Got it. This has been one of my realizations too, that we also often have a lot of people in the early 20s in the workforce, and we keep hiring young people because I feel social media by essence is a game that is for the youth, right? And I think most game changing or say format creating work happens in that age group when they really embrace it. So we've always had that age group, and I've always felt that because the organization, for the longest time, it's, I was 25 when I started. The day before I turned 25 is when I started Virality. So 24.
Oh shit.
Okay. And then I
will not consider that one day.
Yeah. Yeah. So technically 24, but 25 otherwise.
Oh, sure.
And for the first 4 years, I was the oldest guy in the company. Except for maybe somebody who came in and was there for 6 months. 7 months.
100%,
right?
yes.
And I realized that that created a burden of maturity. The realization was that a lot of young people need examples around them to be able to accelerate their self-awareness. Let's put it that way. So they need to work with people who have done it for them to learn that, okay, this is the way you do it. When you do remote, it's kind of hard to do that. And I think when we were working from office, it enabled us an environment to in the benefit, because clients then were okay doing video calls. And if you look at it post 2020, number of video calls that have sort of increased in our line of work is significantly higher. Back before that, people, even if you were probably an hour away in Bangalore, they would insist on a face-to-face meeting, which changed. But with the remote model of, say, servicing, what happened is you could give faster experiences to the juniors on how a client interaction would go by just them being in a room and looking at a screen, and which you could not have done if it was only offline. So I took benefits of both, and I realized that they need to learn from these kind of experiences, right? So, and I realized that if you can keep doing that, then the people you teach will teach other people, and also subject to retention, which is a whole other thing in our line of work. But that would accelerate the workforce and their self-awareness. Again, coming back to that term.
How do you make them self-aware?
Like I said, I think it's just experiences. They just need to have wins and losses. So if you win, great. Don't take it to your head. Be humble. Come back and work again. If you lose on a day, if you have a bad day, just run it off by saying it's a bad day. Come back again, work again. So I think that a lot of people who win and don't do more, or who lose and then get dejected, are the ones who don't.
How do you prepare your team for the battle?
By telling them that it's just another day and it's not really a battle. I think.
It's not really
I think a lot of, again, the problem in our line of work, especially in creative, people get very invested in what they create.
And
and then they make that the part of their self-identity. And when that fails, then they get dejected very badly. And when it wins, unfortunately, it boosts ego up to a universe where it can't be brought down from.
Yes.
Both of them are a problem.
Yes.
So I think moderation, some of it is actually rooted to personality and what you teach them off the work, right? On how you are as an individual. So it's constant, I think, leading by example, giving them advice on the do's and the don'ts, and after that you let them. I look at it a lot like coaching, actually, not the kind of coaching.
Yes, 100%. Yes. You have to consistently coach your team.
Right. So and when I look at coaching, I look at it from the lens of sport, because that's what I did.
Not
the kind of coaching
I'm with you.
Which probably the coaches today are selling in terms of edtech courses. But I feel a lot of planning for them and coaching them to play is required. And then you let them play. And I think good players learn from their own game and then adapt and create. And you have to quickly identify who's cut out for this line of work and who's not, because it's not for everybody. Even among the ones who are sometimes not cut out or cut out, I think some people are in a certain stage of life when they are suited to this business. And some people are not suited for it beyond that shelf life. It's like an athlete only. You can play a sport within a range of a certain age and your mindset. But which is why a lot of people in our line of work, you see, they work at agencies for a while and they switch to brand side.
Yes.
Because
and that's that time is done.
Yeah. Yes. So that also is important to identify. Some people, I think, sometimes are too early for this line of work.
Some people are late.
That too.
Yes.
And that also plays a role.
Yes. I think agency is a great place to get started.
Yeah, I agree.
You get so many things,
I think for me, I keep telling this also to people when they ask, if you're starting a business in Bangalore in 2017, a service-based, human resource-dependent business is probably not something that people would like to start, because I think the culture of the city, the availability of capital that has been there for ages, and just the resources, you might as well build an internet-first business, and that's what everyone is trying to do. But I think, again, mapping back to self-awareness, I just figured this is what I would enjoy doing more than raising capital and building a product. So with that understanding, I sort of came up and started the business.
You were at peace with it? Wow.
Yeah, very much.
Interesting.
I don't think it's in me to do a tech-based business.
How do you bring your ego down when you're winning consistently?
I don't think we're winning.
You never think you're winning?
No chance. Because
so you don't have ups and downs?
Of course you do. Again, you look at it from the lens of sport. There's a great saying, right? I look at years like the minutes of a football match. So there is a 90-minute game. I'm going to play that for 90 years, let's say.
Yes.
Whether you have success or failure at 30 doesn't define your game, right? You can't be winning at halftime and thinking game is over.
Go back to looking at the larger picture all the time.
So,
that's insane.
Which is why journey is the reward I keep telling and harping about, because I think you have to enjoy the process, and it's about that. Like again, this comes from my upbringing in the world of sport. So I just played so much sport that I play. Like, you're not playing to hit centuries. You're playing because you like what happens when the ball hits the bat and that feeling of it.
You're a cricketer,
Yeah,
footballer?
I played cricket. I played football. I tried my hands at a bunch of other sports also.
Okay, wow.
Whatever helped me bunk class in school and college, I did.
I was opposite, dude.
Really?
No, I wanted to play.
Oh,
Wait, so what happened last year? Suddenly we were competing with other agency, which essentially came out of Insane. All of them ex-Insane started their company, doing really well, and that's for the first time I felt that I need to game up, and that for the first time I felt I'm in a sport. So Insane was very organically growing. I never felt that I'm competing or there is someone there is taking my business. We just kept on doing well for some reason. But having a competition or having someone to fight against games you up so much, that was the first that was a rush I felt for the first time last year.
Right.
And from that I'm trying to develop this athlete and sports mindset, and absolutely love the way sports people see the world. Yeah, very insane.
Right. Was that envy which fueled your competitive
There is a
spirit?
lot of envy. This whole story goes in much in depth, and the game was not played fairly. These people did all sort of what do you say? All sort of manipulation to do what they have done. The gameplay was not fair. But ultimately they went out and they became competitive, right? And I had to save my company, I had to save my family, I had to save my team, right? So whether there is definitely a lot of envy, there's definitely a lot of rage, a lot of aggression, and all of them definitely channelizes. But I also, like, in the process I realized that having a competition is so much important. Like, I would not choose them as my competitor, or I don't see them as my competitor. Last year definitely, but now we are evolving as a company. So we are eyeing for a company which is much bigger, much successful, much have produced much greater work, and we'll keep them as a benchmark for competitor now. I'll subconsciously start fighting them now, and automatically my gameplay will evolve into that. Is the theory I'm in right now.
Right. Got it.
Yeah.
Sorry?
Does it make sense?
Yeah. I mean,
Yes.
It's perspective. It's each founder's way of looking at things.
Yes.
I've had people who were part of this organization who went away, tried to start something. Initial days, I remember, I don't know if I ever told the story to at least the team that's here, but there was someone who was part of our initial team who moved on and then started an agency called Wirality X with a V. And he ran it for a while. But I knew he was doing it just...
Wirality X.
Yeah,
Shit,
with
wow.
a V.
Oh, wow.
And then
Just to piss you off.
I mean, I don't know. I think he was just opportunist who was looking at the opportunity of, because he was here for a while. He was part of that initial 6 months of whatever success we had. So he was trying to build off that and just...
This guy was very active on Bumble.
No.
Networking. No, not that guy. Not the sales guy.
No.
Yeah.
Not
I
that.
talked to him. I met him 2 times.
All right, possible.
He came to pitch me and all.
All right.
Yeah.
Wonder
But then I
what-
knew your history, so I never.
Yeah.
But yeah, fair shit, dude. Virality X.
Yeah, someone did that.
Fuck all.
And I remember finding that because I don't even remember how, but I came across it. And I realized that some of the employees who had moved on were also freelancing with that team. But it was a small operation. They had 3 clients. They were happy doing that. And they just wanted to just make some money and survive while they focused on something else. So, but then I think the guy was very mature and he didn't have any sinister intentions. So he quickly shut that down. I trademarked Virality. So we own that so nobody else can use it.
Sure,
So
okay.
got those small things in place. I realized the importance of that, of legal support. But after that, there have been people who have left. And I always like do as a farewell address to them saying, I really hope he does well and competes with us so that we can kick their ass. Like I'm very competitive about it, but in a very positive way.
Sure, yeah.
So and I don't think anybody is really I was, like I told you, right? I was pulling out everyone's balance sheets and financial reports from the last few years to look at how they run their business. Like you ask me any of the bigger agencies, mid-size agencies, anyone doing work, I have everybody's balance sheet with us. And that's just a way of studying competition.
Sure.
But again, trying not to get obsessed with it. Like if I look at a certain agency, say a shebang who's doing 200 crore, and if I get very say caught up in that, and then if all of a sudden tomorrow I want us to do that, we wouldn't be able to. Or if
Sure.
you look at the number of can lines that a Dentsu's winning or an Ogilvy is winning, and we say no, we need to do that overnight, is not going to happen.
Yes.
But it's good to have long-term goals and take inspiration from all directions. But eventually, I think by not copying an agency and by not following the path that they have set, we will, I think,
Yeah.
create our own path.
Oh, yeah.
So over time, I think I've refined my long-term goal also. I think, so there are two things I tell, which is one is I want to go from zero of revenue, which we were when we started, to 100 crores.
Sure,
So
okay.
a 0 to 100 is a great story.
Yes.
And that will fulfill and that will give me self-validation as an entrepreneur that I could do it. A. B, I think of this business and my time in it like an athlete. So I started at 25. I think I have a 15-year window. I have 8 years more to go. And at 40, I'll retire from this line of work. And probably I'll do something else. So I'm very focused that way. So whatever is to be achieved has to be done in this period of time. So I don't think you can have competition of another agency or another entrepreneur as a benchmark, because then these kind of goals that are
Oh, so yeah,
to yours wouldn't be possible.
Fair point. Like insane is very, very insane, right?
Well put.
Like insane is very insane, right? We are little eccentric. We feel a little. We feel that we are better than others, to be honest, because we chase to be that. We work towards putting out absolute best, right? That's what we want to do. So we don't look at others to see how many awards they have or to. But what I mean is, for the first time, like I felt that there is someone who's consistently pulling the business out, and we are draining, right? So, and
right.
for the first time, I felt that I don't know what to do. I felt that before also. I felt lost. I felt like figuring out the ways, but this time I felt powerless for the first time, and that gave me different power. So it's just knowing that there is someone. I'm something. Actually, fair. Your point is on point.
No, but I get where you're coming from.
Yes.
Like if I had somebody who'd pull out, say, X amount of our business and go, my initial, like I would, competitive side of me will like absolutely hate it, and I'll be like, we need to like win this or screw them over, like whatever those thoughts would come through. But at the end of it, I would also look at it and say, well done. Like if you were able to take my business away, it's because somewhere I slipped, and I would look at it that way, and it's a lesson.
Yeah.
But I will come and win it back from you. Like I would have that thought in my mind. And to think of it, it's actually happened with us. Like I think this, to trace back, and now that you're saying this,
Right.
there was a story for us early days when I think I had a lead, and back then it was a small setup of, essentially we were just freelancing, and then bunch of freelancers came together, and this became our
Wirality.
work, right?
Sure,
That was
okay.
our story. So we were just freelancing, and I remember I got a lead, and there was another friend of mine who used to run an agency which just shut down last week actually. But
Oh wow,
we were in the same.
I love the story.
Yeah, no, I had nothing to do with that. But
Well, time has
Sure.
Yes,
But I remember I had a lead and I bought it, and I happened to share with this guy who's also running an agency. So, and I don't know, from somewhere someone in his team knew the same source that I did,
okay.
and they reached out and they said, "Hey, I heard you're
They
talking
pulled it?
whatever." No, so I got to know.
Yes.
So I confronted them saying, like, dude, like I told you because we were friends and I didn't expect this. But if it's this, then let's gear up for that. And then I said, screw it. And then we really upped our game. So incidentally, it's very funny, but that agency and us were both social agencies. So we just had
Right.
similar services,
Right.
art, copy, design, and then we didn't do video back then because 2015-16 nobody was really doing video.
Yeah.
And I could talk and figure out strategy or whatever, and that's about it. So I realized the game changer between both of us was media. And I had my friend Vaishak, who was then with one of the largest media agencies in the country. So I called him up and said, hey dude, what can you teach me about media and promotions? I have a weekend, teach me everything.
Oh shit. Dude.
So I took a crash course from him, and I still remember. No, I didn't understand jack in that
Shit,
weekend.
okay.
He told me what
You're
CPM
not a
is.
prodigy then.
Yeah, I'm not. He taught me meaning of CPM. I still remember, it went over my head. He told me what CTR is, which I somehow understood, like correlate that, bounce it. So I was mugging up terms basically, right? Memorizing them to be able to figure it out. And believe it or not, it took me 8, 9, maybe a year after starting Virality to consistently, and this is how I learned digital in all reality, the math side of the business, by just reading reports. Like I would read through reports, and by fortune I would get my hands on some of the reports in the industry.
I cannot do that ever.
Yeah, so I just kept reading the Excel sheet format of reports and correlating CPM to the other metric. Back then CPE was one, and then there were many others. So I would just read through, and I would look at social, and then I would say, and automatically in my head a graph would be formed that XYZ metrics did well. So we would just look at it that way and then just reverse engineer it.
Makes sense, yes.
So I did that for social, learned that. It took me 2 years after that of working with Karan, who understood performance. I didn't understand jack of performance. And no, now I do. Now I think it's a lot easier. Yeah. Even I think spending so much time in theory, I've learned it now, even without practical experience. Yes. But if you ask me to run a campaign, I might struggle a bit, honestly, because I have no understanding of dashboards. I haven't opened one. I haven't opened that in 3.5 years. But when I just and that repeated looking at data helped to sort of understand performance too. Then once you have the basics, now then the platforms are just layers on top, which you just understand through experience or through theoretical learning and so forth.
Fair, yes.
And so that helped me. But that came from this competitive spirit of the fact that someone is taking away business and you need to upskill.
Oh, 100%.
So my hack in life has been that I put myself in those vulnerable scenarios to have this external motivation. Like I keep telling the story, we didn't need an office. The third month of our business, we got an office. And we didn't need one at that time because we had 4 people. You could have worked from home, you could have worked from cafes, wherever else it was.
Yes.
But the idea of getting an office and adding that capital expenditure on top of you, right, or operational expense, made it it put that much more pressure on me to accelerate and get more revenue.
Yes.
And I did that. Yes. And I think having an office also.
So you're driven by challenges, right? Like, okay, 100%. Now I get it. It's just a challenge in my head, right? Like, competition, rather than calling it competition, it's more of a challenge I'm taking on. Right? So even in FIFA, when I'm hardly playing for 1.5 months now, right? So it's very organic, right? I heard a couple of people playing, and then there was Vidu over once, and we started playing, and then
he's good.
He's really good. Yes. Yeah. And then other people played, and they were playing on my PS. I'm like, fuck you, I'll also play. So I started playing, and then there is this guy called Karthik, a good friend, who is again a great player. And I'll play and lose 11-0, 12-0, 13-0 still. But for some reason, I just want to play with him because losing makes me want to do it more. For some reason, I don't know. Like it's fucked up idea, but I don't mind losing. I want to keep doing it. So I go back to him. I'm like, let's do it again. And then and my game has incredibly improved in last 1.5 months. So
nice.
Like what I'm saying is
esports.
So like among the people I'm playing, I'm able to compete with most of them now.
Right.
Even people who are playing 3 years, 4 years. Obviously, I have my own system. I'm practicing almost every day. That makes it advantageous. But tournament, not at all.
Right. What difficulty do you play in?
I am always playing on Legendary.
There's Ultimate too, right?
Yeah, I never win. But I'm always playing.
Yeah. I know. I've played FIFA all my life, like because I love football so much. I started with FIFA.
Yeah, so get ready to get back into it. Get sucked into it because I will suck you into it.
I think my first FIFA 2002.
Shit, wow.
Yeah, with Beckham and Man United and so forth. So then I went to FIFA 05, 6, 7.
Oh, you have been
Then
playing
I switched to PS2 back then till about FIFA 10. 10 was really bad. I remember it's one of the worst FIFAs ever. So then they switched the gameplay, etc. And I started playing 11 onwards on PC. I played 11 to 14 on PC. 15 I switched to PS3 till about FIFA 18, 19, something like that. Then I got PS5, moved into that, which was a game changer in terms of graphics and stuff. And then finally, when FIFA ended in 23 or 22, I don't remember. 23, right? Yeah. And I said, I'm done. I can't spend more time on it. I was addicted. I would do 4 hours, 3 hours. Like, so I'm obsessed with podcasts too.
Oh, wow.
So I listen to.
Okay, listen. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, like I listen
always
to it.
Something is going in background.
Yeah.
Too much work, dude.
Yeah. So
I'm tired in life.
Exactly right. So, but then I like it. No, so see, that's like another thing. I like FIFA because of the challenge. Like I like to play the career mode.
Dude, we are sick.
Possibly.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
We are literally insane.
When you say we, you mean you and the team, or just
No,
me included?
you and
Oh,
you.
wow.
Me and you, dude.
Possibly.
We are insane, dude.
Yeah.
We are obsessed. Obsession is a form of insanity.
So this is another thing that happens in most social circles where people think I don't do things outside of work or whatever. But the dynamism of work in itself is crazy, right? Like I think this last week alone, we pitched to a real estate company, to a mother care company, the I think baby care products. And before that, I was working on something to do with high-end fashion. But you're switching your mind from one category to the other. Learnings, etc., is so much. And even on the personal side, I think, like you said, I'm avid gamer. At least, at one point I said I'll sell all games and just sit back. But I realized that I need that stimulation in the head to like keep myself going. I don't need to sit idle.
Yes.
I read incredible amounts of books. I do average of 2 podcasts a day. Some or the other way. That's why I like driving. And I go to the gym. I go
You're
to
insane, dude.
like I don't know. I mean, see, it just like you have to just keep your like it's like a wheel. I think life, right? It just moves. I think when that wheel stops is when you have.
But I'm saying most of the people are not doing this, right?
Yeah, I think it's because I think whatever they're doing is giving them the happiness probably. Also, it comes from the obsession of wanting to be the best. Like
that's what it's very small population. I don't think we have chosen the path of happiness.
I'm happy.
Maybe. Okay, sure. So
I'm very happy.
It gives you a rush.
But I don't know. I mean, I guess. I think stimulates you in different ways, I guess. Let's put it that way.
But I don't think there is true happiness.
Really?
Yes, I don't feel.
I do.
You feel there is true happiness?
Yeah. Like, the question is, what else could you do to get happiness at that time? I think that's the question. And I don't have an answer for that. Like, I have nothing. Like, not because I haven't found it. I've tasted everything else and I feel there is nothing.
Oh, yeah, 100%. Yeah.
Like, okay, let's put it this way. If I'm doing 9 hours at work,
yes,
and if I'm doing 1 hour of, say, playing football, which I genuinely like,
sure,
that 1 hour is giving me more happiness. Okay. But that physically, I can't possibly do that for 9 hours because I'm not built for that. So then you are maxing out your potential dosage of happiness you could derive from some activity. But that's limited. That's only 1 hour. So what else can you do for the other? So I look at it in that sense. So there's no guilt of not spending time doing what traditionally people would do to escape or to have fun. While I do all of those things. But I also think that growing, learning, building business is equally important.
No, 100%. So I'm very excited about what I do. But what I'm saying is it's not truly making me like it's I look forward to work. I have incredible team. I work with really smart people and I need to get to them to discuss ideas, which is the most exciting part of entire job, right? So absolutely love it. But and same with FIFA also. It's not like I don't feel different when I'm playing FIFA. It's not more exciting. But fundamentally, maybe I program myself to feel same across, which is it's a practice.
Is that a good thing or bad thing?
That's a good question. I think it works for me. Like, and what I'm not saying is that I don't feel excited or sadness. I do feel them on extremes in my alone time, but especially when I'm doing activities which requires doing it doesn't affect my performance because I'm like, I won't say I'm not feeling, I'm feeling very neutral. I don't know how to put it. Uh, like I'm not emotionally fluctuating a lot. It's a
Right.
very good balance.
But that's a good place to be, right? Even
That's a good
even,
place to
even
be.
for
Yes,
me, it's
yes,
the same.
yes.
Like I'm not saying that I'm always laughing and giggling when I'm
Oh yeah. No. I'm
when
not
I'm looking at a
yes,
brief
yes,
and
yes,
then I'm like,
yes,
it's not that. But I
Yeah,
guess
yeah.
that it's very control of emotions. But
Yeah, I think we are on the same page.
right,
Yes, yes,
got
yes,
it,
yes.
understood.
Fair.
No, the way you were going at one point, I thought, oh my god, like this.
Oh no, there is extreme sadness.
So I was reading this recently,
Huh.
and I could relate to it a lot. Where it's a great football manager, the one whose photo we have there. So he was in his one of his extracts. I think there's a latest documentary on Prime. He was talking about how when you're coaching a great team, there are moments in which the team is either finished training, going somewhere, etc., and you have your own personal work to do, and you're often sitting in your cabin alone and doing that work for this larger team that you manage, right? In terms of where it should go, what it should do, etc. And he said that that moment is actually a very lonely moment in the life of any manager, anyone who's managing people.
Sure.
And a lot of people don't realize it.
Yeah.
But a lot of the make or break decision making that you personally do comes from those moments.
Yes. You feel lonely. You do.
I wouldn't say, of course, because there are certain times that as a business, when you run it, you can't discuss everything with everybody. At the same
Yes.
time, you need a bouncing board too.
Yes.
And over time, and that's, I think, to be very honest, that's where a co-founder is required.
100%.
Right?
Yes.
And I've had my fair share of ins and outs in terms of.
Yes. No, I feel you. Yes. I know, dude.
So I think there are moments like that, right? Wherein you have to be you have to choose who you share with what with very carefully, and I think sometimes you can't share, and then there's a certain sense of loneliness that happens. So entrepreneurship is lonely, like no
100%.
matter
Yes.
how glorious it sounds and
Yes.
whatever. There's insane number of battles in your own head,
Yes.
and that's why I keep saying it's a single player game. You could have a co-founder, but still the first level of decision making and thoughts are in your own head with yourself.
Especially if you're the head.
Yeah,
Yes,
exactly.
Yes.
And I think, but that's the choice, right? That's the life that you've chosen. So it took a while to adjust to that, because my style of leadership was also something where I discuss everything with everybody. So, for example, if you were to create a policy, I would have 3 people from the team who are in charge of maybe managing another team or a function, and I would put it out and say, this is my head, what do you guys think?
Right.
So I would make the process very collaborative and take people along, because if you get people invested in what you're doing, then it's easy for you to execute it.
100%.
And at the same time, if they're not in line with it, they will tell you, and it's also easy for you to decide, because you don't want to force something through.
Yes.
So learning that has been a great experience.
Yes.
Because no one tells you that.
Things, yes.
Right.
Yes.
So, and I've never had a mentor per se. So a lot of those things have been self-realization. So early days, I think there's been a lot of that. And there are adversities, like for example, when somebody doesn't pay, and in our service line business is always a problem of wanting to go back and collect if you don't choose your clients wisely, or there's some other figuring out taxes for the first time. Luckily, I've done all those basics well.
Yeah.
But there are moments in which that you might sometimes not have the basics in place. Or COVID was a great moment like that, where for 6 weeks I didn't know what was going to happen. Like for us, because most of our businesses or clients at that time were very offline driven,
centric. Yes.
While online was a component.
Yeah.
Because that just was the nature of business we had. We had problems. We had adversity. We had, I think, revenues for us at one point plummeted to 10% of what it was, whereas your expenses are still at 100, right? Nothing has changed much. And figuring all of that out requires certain amount of tenacity and patience and perseverance. So building that has been great. So that way, it's very lonely. No one prepares you for that. You can't have those conversations with everybody. Not everyone understands that also.
Yeah.
So, but again, I think my personality is that way, that I deal with problems myself. I don't share as much.
I feel you do. Yes.
It's easier to adapt, I guess, which might have not been the case for somebody else or someone who's younger. But then I had a co-founder for a while. Then I realized the other thing.
Yes.
When you have adversity, because in your head it's easy for you to tell yourself it's fine. When you have a co-founder, you need to tell that person also it's fine. And sometimes they're not really in that state of mind to
they're thinking different things.
Yeah.
Right.
So it could actually become a bigger problem.
Yes.
Because the solution is not always singular. So I think there are a fair share of my experiences on this.
100%. Yeah. It's extremely hard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So just out of this, right now, I get a good sense of how you look at things and how you are. How do you translate that to working with your clients? Because for majority for your business model, right? For those who are listening, you predominantly now as a business work with solopreneurs or
Coaches, yes.
entrepreneurs
Coach
who are in the
creators.
coaching and
Yes.
the edutech business, right? And you have a very, very large and glorious roster of guys like Ankur Warikoo, Gadhvi, and so forth.
Yes.
And for you, when you deal with them, not only are you dealing with the client, but then you're also dealing with these personalities.
Yes.
Whereas for us, I think it's different because we are dealing with a brand.
Yes.
And then we're dealing with the brand manager at the brand or an employee who's entrusted to manage and do things. Very different dynamism,
Yes.
very different equation.
Yes.
How does that experience for you? Because dealing with that one person comes with personality and the qualities and traits that come with it, right?
Right.
And you need a different approach of sorts from the way I look at it. So what has that experience been like?
Very honestly, I feel I'm more of a team person than to be client side. There have been always people who are facing clients more than me. My interaction with the clients is very limited, right? But the core fundamental or one of the core values we operate out of is customer experience, right? So I feel agencies are relationship business, right? You build a great relationship with your customers by being in touch, talking to them enough, and fulfilling your promises, right? If we are able to do these three things well, then we'll retain them, and that's what the business is.
Right.
So we consistently talk about customer experience. We consistently talk about that we have to solve problems of customers from within the area of control we have, within the limits we are operating in.
Right.
And that I've seen has a profound effect on our customers. So, like, there are recently 2 of my customers have said that we are kingmakers, which is a great compliment to get, right? Like, you don't get compliments like kingmaker. So, and that happened because we are doing both the things really well, maintaining the relationship and providing the results. So, I think
is that the sort of accolade or success metric that makes you most happy? Like, what makes you more happy? Like, let's say, is it the money that you make out of this, or are these moments like that where someone compliments you in that way?
For me, it's art, and the way I look at art is building great culture, great team, and producing great work. Right. So that is what makes me happy, right? And yeah.
And what do you do if you have members of the team who probably are great for business but bad for culture? What do you do?
Will not have them. It's a team game. If you're not team, you're not here.
Right. Were you like that from day one?
No.
So when did that change and what caused that change?
Last year, like, for some reason, like, Insane started to build brands, and somehow we got into performance and for coaches. And last year I had this realization that I'm running company according to what I've read in books,
Right.
or what have been told to me by others,
Right.
and this realization led to me to search that how do I want to run the company. And one of the things which I absolutely bullish on is that it's a team sport.
Right.
You can't win in this game alone, and if you're working alone, you cannot do this. So when I've got to this point, I've got solid about this, that if no matter how great you are, if you can't work in team, you can't work in Insane.
Got it.
Yeah.
Interesting. And what do you do if you've made a mistake in a hiring front, for example? If you hire someone, you bring them in, and then you faced with this issue. So what do you do in that? What's the first thing that you default to doing?
So hiring is a team effort. So we were talking about the panel.
Yeah.
right? First, the decision of bringing in people should not be yours; it should be people's. So it's a cumulative decision. If we have decided with the shared consciousness of the people, usually it's great, right? And the fundamental of team building is that first 10 people should be the best people, right? And if they really love working with each other, they'll not let anyone in who is disrupting that. So I'm operating from that. So I'm just trying to bring the great people together, and everything else happen automatically.
Got it. And if that person then isn't settled in or isn't doing things the way you want, would you be inclined to letting them go early, or would you give them a chance?
I will talk to them a lot. And depending on how do they react on talking, I'll make choices.
Right.
It's a very judgment call. Sometimes judgment could be wrong, sometimes right. There is no right way to decide.
Right. So the reason I asked you that was because one of the things I did very early on is that stemming out of this belief that I don't know this business inside out and it take time. I was 25, right? I told you the circumstances. I said I will hire fast, but fire faster. So it was a very selfish, I think, move also back then, because the only way to understand truly, like you asked, how do you build self-awareness, right? Awareness in hiring comes from interviewing, selecting, not selecting, getting somebody in the system, then looking at how they do things, and then learning from pattern. And I think human beings are essentially more or less the same as a collective. You can always predict actions. So I did that in the early days. So I got people in very quickly. Like there's a famous story of Vidhu's, which we keep talking about. I think we spoke about in the podcast as well, which is we hired him in a 15-minute. I took a call in 15 minutes of him walking in for the first time and speaking to me. So I saw something and I felt, okay, he's tenacious. He can sell. At least he could talk a lot, and if passionate, he will figure it out and do it. But then we didn't have a position for him. But I said, let's get him on board. But that was a gut call. But often at times, and I haven't had those gut calls, but then you look at someone's capability, CV, etc. You bring them on board, and sometimes you are also in our line of work, I think, driven by the need to fill a role, because this business is essentially like, to manufacture, you need raw materials.
Yes.
Sometimes you're sold manufacturing in futures, and you need the raw material input.
Yes.
And in our line of work, that manufacturing is a service. And then the raw material are the people's brain that they contribute, right?
Yes.
Sometimes you're dependent that way also to do.
Yes.
So that's been an experience for me, I think. But what's overcome, like we just discussed, is that once you learn so much in terms of pattern recognition, then you don't do the same mistakes again. So now what I'm trying to do is figuring out how I can teach people that when they hire. Like I've done hiring for 7 years.
Yes.
If someone who's only been doing it for 2 years has a certain level of capability, how do I accelerate that? And now I'm looking at the entire business in that lens.
Right.
To say, how do I, like a coach, right? Like a coach is finished playing, is retired. I'm still playing, I guess. I'm a player coach. But how do you bring that through? So like one of the things that you touched upon early on is that you're not great with documenting information, right? And even neither was I.
Sure, yeah.
But I've now, for the last 1 year, started to spend so much time on documenting things. And it takes me back to this story I got from my ex-boss, who at one point worked at Yum Brands, which runs KFC and McDonald's. Sorry, not McDonald's, Pizza Hut, I guess. So he spoke about the service blueprinting that they do in KFC, where they take a piece of chicken, they put it in the batter. So they flip it in a certain way, right, top, left, down, maybe, something like that.
Yes.
And then they fry it. Yes. So if they go wrong on one of the processes in terms of right, they go left, they throw the chicken away because it wouldn't come out the same way as the others, right? And I looked at our business in the early days saying, should we do that or not? And my dilemma for the longest time, and I still have a bit of it, is that the minute you standardize it, you lose the essence and the creativity that this business is all about.
Yes.
Right? You need people to break rules, outliers, etc., to be able to think differently.
Yes.
How do you sort of look at that? Also, because performance sides of it, somewhere are more theoretically based.
Sure.
And you can still create those blueprints.
Sure.
So how do you look at that? Because you said you obsess about customer satisfaction and experience.
Okay. One, we are evolving. We are not going to be performance agency.
Right.
We are going to be the brand builders. We are getting into social as well.
Oh, nice. That's competition.
That's competition. And we are going beyond coaches. So we're going to be working. We are aiming for big startups and kings who already exist. So in next 2-3 years is going to be a lot about that. Um, Also, we are changing the way we operate. So we are more about team collaboration and creativity. Um, the way we look at creativity is that we need to be led by ideas and we should make things we love. Uh, if we can do these two things, we'll be able to do great work. And so customer experience obviously is one side of entire thing. But internally, how should we do things is through ideas. So I uh, I always felt documentation is important, but whenever I tried it, never worked for me or people. The people push it for some reason, and even I could not ever consistently do it for long term. My leading style is more connecting with people every single day and talking to them. And the documentation we do is the documentation in the conversations, like that we are just talking every single day, and hence the whole ideas we are discussing is fresh and boiling. Does that make sense?
Yeah, to an extent, yes.
To an extent. Ask me the question again, probably.
So basically, how much do you document?
Okay.
How much do you create as a blueprint if you want the customer experience to be standardized when you are in the room versus somebody else is in the room?
Right.
And I don't think as founders we can get the 100% replica ever.
Yes.
And we shouldn't try for it.
Yes.
But if you can objectively create similar say intensity or similar seriousness of experience across the chain, I think that's a win. So if you have to do that, how would you look at that approach? Tomorrow, if 5 of your team members between different levels of capability are dealing with a client in your absence, how would they look at it, and how would you hold them to standards that you define?
So it's all starts with what we want to create, right? That's the first thing. And what we want to create should be led by idea rather than looking at let's say if you want to do a campaign for Red Bull. So we won't want to go on Red Bull's social media and look at the content. We definitely should do that. I'm not saying we should not. But if we lead the idea from there, we're already boxed. So we need to create an environment where people can come together and cook new ideas, right? Now, once we know what we want to create, we want to know who are the different kind of people who we need, right? So bringing them together and then making them talk. These are the 3 ingredients of it. That's about it. Now, how do I fulfill customer experience and how much I document? Totally depends on how the customer needs it, right? If customer needs us to do certain things, we'll do it. If they don't need us, we'll don't do it. So we want to keep it as agile as possible. Like it's not a must do in the company. It's good to do. If you do it already, you yourself, great. We don't force you to do something which is not necessary. So,
got it.
Does that make sense?
Possibly. I mean, it depends. I'm still curious as to how would you control it in the long run. Today might be a different story because you probably are still evolving, but at some point, the evolution will settle, right?
I think my job would be to build the culture at the largest scale, and the culture is all the managers coming together and building that. Right. So making sure the managers are always running by ideas by pulling the ideas from the team, and making sure choosing the ideas which will work best and executing them along with the team. If we can train the people into doing that, we can do this at scale.
Understood.
But it's a theory for sure.
Got it. Fair. Interesting. Have you looked at the world of awards?
No.
On by choice, or would you ever look at yourself competing for those? Or because when we first spoke and even after, I realized you've done some groundbreaking work over the 6 years, 7 years with some of the startups. Like we're talking about say something like a Mama Earth and
Yes.
There have been few others too, right?
Yes, yes,
that
yes,
you've
yes, yes.
launched into space. Vadam Teas.
Yes, yes.
That's a case study in itself in terms of.
We didn't play a major role in Vadam Tea, but
Right.
definitely we worked with them.
So right, so you have some success stories that way.
Yeah.
And our line of work, often reputation is what brings business in.
Yes.
That's one more thing we'll get into. But what has been your thought process? Have you looked at the awards and said, "Oh, it'd be great for us to be recognized in something we do," or is it you think it's a complete waste of time?
I don't think it's a waste of time. The idea is to make the great work, and if we get award out of it, why not?
Got it. But then you wouldn't do something for it.
I will not do it.
Right.
Something.
So what I've come to realize in our line of work again is a lot of guys who win the awards are the ones who consciously chase it. It's almost very difficult to organically win something.
Yeah.
I mean, you would smaller awards, but the larger awards, if you look at the stuff that goes on at Cannes or Spikes Asia, these are the pinnacles of creative awards, right? Or be the Abbeys in India. Often than not, agencies actually have teams dedicated whose only job is to look at the award categories and say, what kind of campaigns can we do that fit it? And I found that very counterproductive. Or maybe it's doable if you have large resources and just teams that stay on it. But then I realized the larger networks of agencies or the international ones that exist run on this phenomena. And their reputation globally year on year is retained on the basis of how many awards they win. And I don't know, now you're hiring people from those kind of backgrounds too, which is why I asked if you've been influenced so far.
No, not at. So I realize, especially creative people who have been in creative for a long time have this mentality. I feel this is very herd mentality.
Yeah.
I think it's the outcome of doing the great work, not the other way around. I am not saying don't have aspiration. But at core, if Christopher Nolan is going to make a movie, he's not doing it for Oscars, right? It's to put his art out. So if you can train yourself to put your art out, that is outcome. You are gonna get Oscars, right? So just produce the fucking amazing work, and you'll end up getting Oscars.
Right. Very interesting.
So,
God, my question to you was going to be, if you have people in the team who look at it from that lens of accolades, it might be a cultural conflict.
It is cultural conflict. My job is to sell the idea. My job is to make sure that we all come to this place that we're not against the idea of awards, but we are at core solving a problem through our creativity, and that's what we need to be really great at. And awards will come by product.
Yeah.
It's never a chase. It's always an attractive process.
Got it. So by the extension of that, then what according to you is your most important strategy from the perspective of winning new business, or the most important aspect or most important thing that you focus on?
So I think our sales will evolve now. In the past, we have been because we have been coaches and we've made good name in that, we were getting people who would want to work with us. And I think in the future, it will still be true. But now that we are chasing bigger brands, creativities, and whole new world of content, I think we'll have to change the strategy. I still don't have exact way how we are gonna go about it, but I'll see how it evolves. I have no idea.
We'll figure it out.
We'll talk. Yes.
Yeah. So the last thing that I want to probably ask from the agency perspective is, how do you build systems and processes to ensure for scale? I've had to learn it on the job. Maybe I confessed to this in one of our previous episodes when I had my friend Arman here, where I remember meeting him and he and I were sitting and having a conversation, and he came from the world of startups and he asked me, so what's your EBITDA like? What's your PAT? And this is somewhere 2018. I think this is just after I met you.
I even don't know what is PAT.
So it's basically, earnings and your profit after tax and stuff. And I didn't know what those metrics meant. And it sent this deep insecurity into me. And I just went deep into the financial side of it to learn it.
Now you told me I'll not sleep today. I'm like, shit, what is EBITDA? I'll look at the wall and think about it.
Correct. But I just sort of, I also did a lot of things myself in the early days. like I ran finance, I did HR, I prepared offer letters, I made our job descriptions,
Yes,
everything
yeah.
I did.
Yeah.
And-
Balu made his job offer letter himself.
Oh, really?
Insane.
To
He
join
came in the work. I'm like, now make it yourself, dude.
That's epic.
Yeah.
Literally employee to make it
Oh
their
yeah,
own offer letter.
100%. Yeah, he did also.
Yeah.
I just signed. So.
Wonder who else.
Yeah, running company is incredible, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
So it's great, right? I think these kind of things people don't often talk about, at least the unstructured bit of it, but it is very unstructured.
Yes.
And I realized that I have to withdraw myself from a lot of functions. And while I was doing it, I realized that I have to now, and to ensure that the team doesn't face the consequence of that, the disruption, right? Of me going and somebody else doing it, wouldn't be the same.
Yes.
So I started to document and do certain few things at my end, and also taking like trying to coach those people. But then that's also very strenuous if you are spending all your time thinking for clients and strategizing. And it's taken me a few years to get into that zone. Now I truly understand how to build system and process for scale. But very curious to know your experience of it, also considering that you've had some evolutionary moments in the journey.
Right. There is nothing written.
Hmm.
We don't have any written processes. We don't give any printouts or any Notion documents to people. All of that exists in conversations and culture. So my primary job is to bring functional expert and make them come together, and they figure it out themselves how to do it. One thing which I'm absolutely bullish on is catching up daily. Right. So me with my co-founders, we have to talk every day. And more than often sit in a casual setting, talk from the heart. And that is something it's not just we do it. This is something we are developing company wide. And when people come together and talk, the processes form automatically.
Right.
So we don't need to really tell which processes to form. People know the problems, someone else knows the solution, and someone else grows on it. And suddenly everyone knows the process because they are discussing.
Right.
Even if it's not written, everyone understands it.
Right.
So I think that's how built the processes.
Right. Is this something you created proprietarily? Like something that you put together and you thought, oh wow, this would be great?
Not sure if I can entirely follow.
Like for example, so I'll give you an example.
Yes.
One of the things that I had experience of before starting Virality in my last job was I was trying to teach the folks there what social media is and how do you plan for it, right? Just creating a calendar, as basic as that. And I remember that they looked at it from the lens of old school traditional marketing. So they wanted to know what is a TG persona, how are you going after, etc.
Right.
And I remember at one point so I didn't know how to use Microsoft Excel at that point in time. It was very embarrassing being in a consulting firm.
You were that bad? Huh?
Yeah, I was very bad. Right. I also was criticized for my quality of my presentations in terms of design. And then I was anyway learning my Photoshop back then. So I said, now I'll show you. And I would make custom templates on PPT. So I did that. I aced PPT that way. Then I had to figure out how to use Excel. With some embarrassment that came my way, I learned it. But I remember then making a marketing plan, and then my then boss wanted me to put it into an Excel document. I was like, how the hell do you fit a calendar into an Excel?
Wow.
But I somehow basically went on doing it. It looked very ugly and unstructured. But that itch was there, so I started to try to perfect it. So when I started out Virality, I had this idea of creating an Excel file. We internally call it the delivery sheet, which is basically every single information on a brand, from its guidelines to links to the assets that you use, to the TG, to calendar, to like your paid media reports sections, everything in one Excel file, segregated by different tabs.
Right.
So eventually I built a 15 tab system. And the beauty was it's a great handover document too if someone's taking over the account from some standpoint, right? You could go back and see what it is. Then obviously the itch to like play with it increased. So then I would figure out if automatically the report table is there with your post-wise or campaign-wise metrics of whatever you're trying to achieve. You can auto program them to create graphs for you, which are copy-pasted into a slide or whatever else it is. And I figured that if you can send emails at the end of the day to your brand saying ki today's performance was like this because the graphs are auto generated, all you have to do is enter data.
Right.
For the brand manager, it's a win because a lot of the corporates love graphs.
Right.
So they get to like take a screenshot of that, put it into their deck and send it to their bosses.
Oh, yeah.
So internally it becomes a big win, right? So I figured a system to speed on up the process just for this and to keep everything.
Right.
So I still think it's a great thing I created.
Oh, yeah.
But then not everybody is comfortable doing this on Excel or Google Sheets.
Yes.
So there's its own challenges for that matter. So sometimes you build something thinking, oh, this is going to be revolutionary internally
Yes.
and externally, but you realize that you can't get it beyond 2 desks, right?
Yeah.
For whatever reason. So you've had any of those experiences, something that you've created and you felt, oh wow.
Yeah. So I've created a lot of processes which I'm very proud of.
Are you the only one who's proud of it?
I feel so. The problem is that I'm okay doing hard work.
Right.
Most of the people not, right?
Right.
And it also I also realized that everyone has their own mechanics of managing their work, right? Like if you make a box structure to do something, a lot of frustration will come out because people have the need to organize things in their own way, right? So one thing we try to hire for is people who are self-managed, people who can take the work home or to their work and come back with the output and discuss that, right? Rather than we telling how you do it, you figure it out how you do it. You come back and discuss, and we'll discuss in the team. You get the feedbacks, you do the discussion, we grow the idea, and then same thing, right? So here and there, everyone has their own processes, right? You can't say that there are no processes, but I don't have any proprietary in that way, apart from what I'm talking about, and it's not proprietary.
Right.
Like I've learned it from here and there also. I've tried to figure things out, but I feel this is super effective. We have started test. So I've started condensing this idea from last year, and it's showing the effects now. So, for example, yesterday there were 7 people sitting in my house. We were chilling, and I said, let's try our creative process. And our creative process is very simple. We want to first come up with a feeling, which we want to showcase in the content or whatever we're creating. And from there, we'll lead to the idea, a big idea, which makes us feel aha, and others feel jealous, can be for a long time. And then we talk about it at length, right? Until we hit an original idea. And then we figure out execution from there, right? So a company which does marketing for coaches suddenly was talking about how to do a campaign of Nike, right, yesterday, which is a big shift in my head. So I feel we have something very raw and fundamental and very amazing, which we have cracked now, and I'm excited to see where it goes.
Nice.
Yeah.
What has been the response to people coming from core performance background to now suddenly think creative? Whereas in the past, they may have got away with it because you didn't need to do so much of it.
So creative team is different from performance team.
So they have no common...
So they come together to discuss, like different leads have to come together to discuss their functions. A performance lead will come and talk to a creative lead, and they will discuss how things are, exchanging the ideas, understanding how the landscape of performance work, so that creative can go back and think from the lens of the performance also, and same the other way around. So the distribution in team is different and the creative team is different.
Understood.
And they do share ideas once in a while, every week. They meet, spend enough time together so that they can understand.
Understood.
Yeah.
Got it. And how do you structure your client servicing team then? Because now I have had different theories over the last few years, also because I spent some time in consulting where strategy and servicing is one and the same.
Yes.
right? As a person working on an account, I was expected to research, come up with solutions, also open doors in terms of be it looking out for external help or external additions to what we were doing as a process. I managed everything to do with the client and their problem statement.
Right.
When you come into advertising, you realize it's a little bit more streamlined, structured, departmentalized. And we have been debating, at least for the last 10 years that I've been doing this, that pure role of a client servicing person or a manager
Right.
is now slowly dying. Or at least in the way that it was done in the traditional organizations,
Right,
where
right.
the person's only job was to manage the client,
Right.
and they wouldn't get involved into any of the actual technical things,
Right,
where they
right,
would
right.
delegate it to the team members.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that role is going away.
We operated without that for the longest time. We
Right.
are early in insane days. We realized that customer service roles don't work because there is a lot of Chinese whisper, right?
Right.
So loss of information is too much that by the time people get the conversations to the team and the other way around to the clients, like it's already diluted. In the evolution, we realized customer service roles are very important. Right, so we didn't work with customer service roles for the longest time. People who were executing were the people who were reporting, and that worked wonderfully. But if you have to do more than one thing, you have to have functional experts. Is a realization, and the way we will manage is bringing all of them together in one place every day. So if these people talk for half an hour to 1 hour every single day, at length about what is happening, all of them will be on the same page.
Understood.
So that's how.
Interesting. So you're of the opinion right now that you need those roles.
Why need to? Yes.
But what is their background like? Would you hire someone fresh into that role, or would you promote somebody from existing functions into that role?
We have always been experimenting and taking risk. We don't limit ourselves. I go a lot with gut, lot with okay, this feels right, and we do it.
Got it. So it's again, I have a question for you here. How would you scale this if you aren't the one taking that decision and somebody else has to? At some point when the team is like large, okay, what's your ambition from that lens? Like, do you see Insane becoming 200, 300, 400 people?
Insane is gonna be extremely big, dude.
So
I don't know the numbers, right?
well, how much are you right now?
We'll talk about it off podcast.
Okay. You want to give me a range?
We are doing well.
No, in terms of people.
People.
Yeah.
We are almost 50 people. We actually got down a bit. We were at 60 last year.
Right.
We got to almost 50. In fact, 45 to 50.
And
we are.
the split on the creative versus your departments, like
Yes.
what is the ratio of that?
More creative.
Nice.
So I think there is 2 to 1
Oh,
is the ratio, or 2.5 to 1. So we are going big on creatives. We also have tech team. We have data team. We essentially come with 4 functions: media buying, creative, tech, and data, and we bring them together for the clients. So the problem is always acquisition at scale and fast. So that's what we specialize in right now. But we are gonna be the evolution is that we are gonna be brand builders, kingmakers through both organic and paid, and we'll take care of end to end in that.
Interesting. Very interesting. So now you're building this new team with creative being the focus, right? And I think I generally feel that apart from the creativity, there is nothing that is like a moat that agencies can offer. Right? Everything else I feel is replaceable, especially with the way the market's going, how brands have been hiring from agencies, etc. What is your experience in working with brands? Do you feel like there are enough evolved brands with brand managers and marketing heads who understand the current landscape? Like, for example, one big shift has been since COVID that everybody is getting into performance. But they are looking at performance from what has been the landscape maybe 3 years before that.
Yes.
and then they expect that to be today's reality, right? Which is not the case.
Yes.
Especially when the amount of importance that data and tracking played before versus post iOS 14.5 has been huge, right, in terms of the change. So how do you deal with that? Do you think the clients are on the same page? If they're not, then are you training the teams to play that role? Because if you've gone into creating a customer service team, then I'm assuming there's a lot of bridging and information or education that you need to give to the client. So how are you dealing with that reality?
So customer service person is not the only person talking, right?
Right.
It's his job is to make sure right parties are getting together, and we have active WhatsApps and Slacks to make sure that everyone is super involved. The experts talk to the client directly whenever needed. When the service people is needed, they come in the picture. So they're not supposed to do the conversation, which they're not supposed to do the conversation, right? But they're not good at, they cannot go and do it, right? Do client come with a lot of past ideas? We educate them. We keep educating them until they realize. They think, obviously they see 2 years ago, 1 year ago, the ideas are obsolete. We talk to them.
Right.
And a lot of them don't align. So, sure.
What do you do then?
Well, they don't align.
So do you try spending time to bring them into your area of alignment, or you just let it go?
Until now, we were letting them go. But we are becoming more and more about retention.
Right.
So we are trying to educate as much possible, but it's like relationship, right? If it's not gonna work, it's not gonna work.
Right. And you're comfortable with that?
Client going?
Yeah.
100%.
We have no problems with that.
I don't have any problems.
Yeah. Neither do I. I think you just can't be romantic about it. I was at some point.
Oh yeah, we all are.
Yeah. I think heartbreaks toughen you up.
Initial ones, yes.
So it's
I
more
feel
of
you,
a-
dude. Yeah.
Yeah.
You put your soul into it.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Like the lengths that I've gone to make things work for a brand,
Yes.
and often at times and especially this happens when you're young and you're very pure, right?
But I think that's the way to do it.
It is. So I'll tell you what I've realized in the last 3 years of dealing with larger agencies or agency people, either in working on an account together or trying to bring them onto thing, etc.
Yeah.
There is tremendous amount of how do I put this eloquently? There's a lot of selfishness in
In the
what
world.
larger agencies suggest or propose to their clients. And I'll break it down and tell you why. Fundamentally, a lot of these large agencies, you pick any of the top 20 in the world, chances are that they are part of a larger holding company,
Sure.
which is listed on the stock market.
Yeah.
Now, if you're a publicly traded company, the most important thing to you is your share price. Right? Nothing else. It's a fact. Like you are, organization is accountable to its shareholders, and it's share value that matters, to be very honest. And a lot of them work on the basis of what's good for their share price, etc. Which is why whenever you read stories of small independent agency acquired by larger ones, certain milestones are placed in terms of cutting your cost of resources, cutting your employee benefits, blah blah, etc. to
Right.
just improve the margins, because it's that game, right? And there are certain things that they do which are solely in their agenda, which is what are the services that make them money. So they will propose that over the strategy that works, and then they will build narratives from a creative lens that support that. And then there is a lot of pandering for awards too, which we spoke of. Right? I
Right.
think these are a few essential things that work for them.
Sure.
So working in the last 2-3 years with those kind of people and those kind of organizations, either on partnership or on account or so, they play that game really well. So they know how to tell a story to the client that this is the most important thing. See, and one of the larger theories that they peddle is the fact that the most important thing is the creative narrative and the brand and the positioning. It is, I agree. Like there's no doubt about that fact. But the way in which I think modern day ecosystem enables you to go and do it is different. So I genuinely think investing hardcore on social and on digital experiences is the number one thing you can do.
Right.
Unless you're sort of selling to a TG which is remote, right? But I think there's a narrative created in India that doing it in this particular format of spending on offline medium, because offline mediums get you better margins, it's fact. Like Facebook and Google are not going to give you kickbacks.
Right.
But any other publisher you go to, if you spend significant amount of money, they will give you kickbacks.
Right.
It is the model of the business, right? So I think there's a lot of the industry that is motivated to work in that fashion.
Right.
And I think a lot of the servicing requirements or the need to educate and to keep the client within to think in this particular way consistently is part of the agenda. So they do that really, really well.
Right.
Which I don't think us in the digital age, because we have absolutely no reference to any of that in terms of the way world works. We don't think that way. So I think we build the services, or we sort of look at it more purely from our good intentions point of view. Like, we might be wrong,
Right.
but we are doing it with the right intention that we want to bring success to the brand.
Right.
And that's one huge change or huge difference I have seen versus these stalwarts who are in the industry from the longest time versus us.
But I think it's customer experience, right?
It is. And I think if you look at the FMCGs or the top 100 brands in India,
Right.
from an advertising lens, who spends the most 99% of them, I can bet, work with some of these networks and the large agencies.
Right.
And that's the model. And as a function of which, I think, because all of those agencies, if you track them down, essentially we come down to 4 or 5 large holding firms. Right now, I think Publicis is the biggest.
Sure.
Then I think there's Omnicom. Then there is, I think, IPG Group. Then there is WPP.
Okay.
And then I don't know who else. The last one, there's Dentsu somewhere in between all of this.
Yeah.
I think these are the 5 large groups, and there are some of the others also
Right.
who have lost track of things and market share, etc. So
Right.
I think if you trace all the agencies back, they'll come down to these 4-5 holding firms.
Right.
And then they have an intention to, like we've discussed this, right? Spending for awareness, media buying.
Yeah.
First time you and I spoke about it, where I told you there are agencies who only make money on a commission that is charged for the media that they're handling. And all that their objective of running media is awareness. It's CPM.
Right. But then my point is, the brands come to them with that, right? It's
Of
not
course.
that.
But I'll tell you where that comes from.
Yeah.
That comes from old habit. The old habit is, how did TV work? How did radio work? So if you go back and trace, and sometimes I do this with new team members who are joining us, which is, if you pick the first ever TV ad, okay, I forgot, it's some Bollywood on something. It's a famous thing.
Yeah.
It's a 10-second or something, or a 6-second, I don't know.
Right.
It's a screen, and it's a print ad
Yeah.
with radio voiceover, because nobody knew how to do TV.
Right.
So they took reference of the old one. What were the first set of meta ads that worked? They were banner ads,
Yes.
because display worked before social,
Yes.
right? And we took it from there. So
Yes.
I think every medium bleeds into the other, and it's habit. So if you haven't truly understood potential of social, you will use social the way you used.
But the brands move slowly anyway, right? Like.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
So I think that's a battle that, for example, we are the only country.
That's where the opportunity for us comes in, bro.
Of course, but you will also realize that there is. So I would say it's not really the fault of the brands alone. I think there are a lot of.
No, I get your point. So that narrative is being sold by the bigger agencies.
Yeah.
That this is the way to do it.
And a lot of the small agencies, unfortunately,
Yeah.
while they have the talent and skill, don't always back themselves. They don't believe that they can drive result a certain way.
Yeah.
And also, the problem with digital is, majority of the brands that are built on digital are built for short term.
Sure.
Because they're trying to grow, right? They're not trying to, the greatest example is, if you look at a Nike or an Adidas selling expensive sneakers,
Right.
they don't really show you the ads. It's bought on the perception of what the brand is, but that takes years to get to. So a small brand today trying to raise funds from the investors to stay afloat for 3 years can't do that. They have to do growth.
Is it? I feel opposite. I
Explain.
feel the problem is that the most of us are herd mentality, right? Because we see that everyone is doing growth the Amazon way. Everyone is doing Amazon way, right? Amazon cracked or could crack growth model at the scale nobody else could, right? But today, building community is much more easier than ever,
100%.
right? Like if we can truly bring the feeling out through our content and reach to people, we can build brands.
100%. No doubt.
So I feel it's easier today.
But I think I agree with you the fact that it's easy.
Yes. And in 3 years, you can create so you can't become Nike in 3 years, right?
Basically, you're saying your marketing activity can be tailored to a way to get to people to care about you,
Yes.
even if it's in a 3-year window,
Yes.
right? I agree, no
Yes.
doubt about it. And I
Yes,
think it's a matter of mindset from
Sure.
day one, how you want to do it. Like I keep
100%.
citing example of the whole truth.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, it's
yes.
a great example.
Great
I think
example. Yes.
someone
yes.
very
I don't-
nicely said, in a world of horizontal width, it's a
Yeah.
case study on vertical depth,
Yes.
right? On how
Yes,
you
sir.
can go and touch the thing. Like
Yeah.
you do, like there are so
And it's
I-
the right emotion they're touching, right? So,
yeah, and I think a lot of brands have like sort of showcased that. Like I remember reading a case study of Taco Bell in 2014.
Yes.
So anyone who would send a hi to Taco Bell on Snapchat,
Yeah.
Taco Bell will respond to you by sending you a picture of a taco. Like there were things of that nature. There's
Crazy.
silly things, right? Which
Yes, yes,
don't
yes.
make a difference, but it adds to value.
Yeah.
Uh,
Builds relationships.
Taylor Swift,
Oh, wow.
a great example of a celebrity who does that. Like
Yeah. She's incredible.
yeah, like she shows up to her fans' birthday because they just DM'd her and said, "Hey, tomorrow's my birthday. Whatever, can you come?" And she takes the effort to go and surprise that
Wow.
particular person,
She's
right?
crazy, dude.
Yes, but
Truly
that,
insane.
but that's the, and you look at today, her power in culture is because she does things like that, and a generation have grown up on that, and they resonate with someone of those qualities. So this got a lot to do with the change in
She's got us, dude.
in society also, to be very honest. But that's an impact. I feel that to do it, you need that mindset top down.
Yeah.
And often at times, big brands hire marketing heads and brand managers who come from other places. And in marketing, like we just discussed, you always are, we are all creatures of habit.
Yes.
So we like to do things the way it was done. And very few people want to reinvent and change the direction, right? There are few who do it. But again, I think if you're not a founder, you're only there in that organization for a certain amount of time. And today's day and age, everyone shifts every 2 years.
Yes.
So it's even harder for you to build long-term relationships. Then if you don't have long-term relationships, you're not going to have long-term marketing strategies or outcomes that are laid out. So it's a chicken and hen situation in that way. So, and unfortunately, because there aren't enough digital agencies also who look at it from that lens to say, how do I build this brand for 3 years? Because they don't have that kind of a roadmap. Because a lot of them are young organizations, let's face it. A lot of them in their 20s haven't figured it out.
Yeah.
Going through that initial thing that we spoke of, self-awareness. So don't know how to moderate your experience with the client either. They're learning through the process.
True.
And unfortunately or fortunately, there are a lot of cases of certain agencies not living up to the expectation of what the client wants also. Because the client sometimes wants something that you can't give.
Yes.
And some of them try to give it
Yes.
and they fail.
Yes.
Some of them don't bracket themselves. Like I remember we went to this particular brand, and the minute I said I'm a digital agency owner, the perception was different. You guys do social. You guys do that kind of stuff,
Yeah.
which is looked at as less important. Now, it's a function of the way industry is created.
Yes.
right?
Yes.
So it's always harder to fight that. I mean, I tried doing that for a while. Then I realized that you don't need to do it, because sooner or later people will understand and they will have to shift. And I think that's the inflection point we are at in India, at least as an industry,
Right. Yes.
where everyone's realizing importance of creative right now.
Yes.
This is where I think future would be.
Yes.
Everybody will understand the importance of brand. And there's a difference in brand and creative, according to me.
100%.
Right? I think creative is...
Brand is everything.
Yeah, it is. And I think
Yes.
for every... Like, I keep telling this to folks that we also know collectively about brand and creativity. I say, if two brands
Yeah.
end up looking and feeling the same from a creative lens, then you're failing as a brand
100%.
custodian.
Yes.
Right? How do you create that difference? Very
Yes.
important.
Yes.
So I think we're going through that as a industry.
The world is changing.
Yeah.
And I also feel like the world is performance is dying.
100%.
We are becoming more and more distribution led, organic distribution led. Maybe brands will not be built on brand colors, which is a larger narrative, like you know, brand colors. Brand
I think that will
design.
change.
That will change.
Either so, I think either that will change,
Yeah.
or more of marketers will need to learn how to be creative within those confinements.
That will also happen, 100%.
Yeah.
Also, it's gonna be very creator led.
Mm.
Politicians or celebrities, business owners, entrepreneurs, all of them is gonna be podcasters.
For sure.
So,
For sure.
Yeah.
No doubt.
Yeah.
Everyone's going to create content. I don't know
Yes,
how many of
yes,
them have the
yes.
capability for a podcast.
So the larger brand will be built out of the persona of the founder or the person who is doing. So like a lot of people now resonate with both out of Aman Gupta's personality, right? Like a lot of people buy because Aman has a very, he has its own vibe going on. People love that.
And I
right?
think
Like
a lot of
it's
people
bold
don't
and-
buy also because of that.
Sure.
So I think it'll all even out in the world in the long run.
Yes. And it's great, right? There are polarity is the greatest way of marketing anyway.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. So I think like it's inevitable that creative will be given importance, but I think a lot more people will now spend time to learn creative better. And I think there's two ways I look at it. The
there's
bigger
a war coming.
yeah, for sure. I'll tell you, I think the war is on already, subtly, right?
It is.
I remember, like, I know there's a lot of times when we are in a room managing the digital mandate of a brand, and then they give the mainline and the creative to a traditional agency. And I know the conversation, how it goes. So there's a lot of ridiculing subtly
Right.
from both sides to both sides, where we think that they're outdated and they don't understand how to reach out to today's youth or today's audience and
Yes.
make them care and feel. And they look at us and say, these guys are thinking short term. They're not looking at it in the long lens of how do you stand out and etc. etc. And both are right in their own way. I don't debate that.
100%.
But I think that is where a client needs to step in and draw the line and say, you do this and you do this. Oftentimes, I feel clients are guilty of not doing that. And they just let the war rage until one side wins. Or maybe takes the brand down with them. So
And each of them has their own strategies going on.
yeah, 100%. So
Yeah.
so recently, I think we were working on a brand, and we happened to meet with one of the largest agencies and their head of creative. He's, I think, CCO, APAC, something of that nature. Big guy, well known in the Indian industry. And Karan was actually talking to him.
Oh, sure.
And I wasn't there that day, but he was curious of our journey. And he asked us, like, what do you guys do, this, that. So Karan said, this is the story. He's like, so who are your founders? And then Karan told about me, my background, the fact that I was 24, 25. And this guy was shocked. He said, whatever you guys have done so far, like, hats off. But he said, I don't know an example of somebody who's managed to do media and creative in-house.
Shit, dude.
Right? And he said, the reason is because he said, how do you get everyone to follow one agenda? And I was curious about it. So Karan spoke to me and I said, dude, like, speak to this guy. Like, I want to know more on this. So he said, in big agencies, it's an agenda game, which means when you are going to sell a service, there is benefit of suggesting TV. There is a different benefit if you suggest newspaper.
Right.
And there's a different thing when you suggest whatever. End of the day, everybody will reach and hear, etc. And there are certain sciences to which you do all those things. But strategically, he said, there is every agency tries to sell what they are good at. Right? Because it's more chances for you to succeed. For example, assume that making a TVC is the best outcome at that point in time, because for whatever reason, say you're advertising an IPL or whatever it might be, but you don't have good writers, you don't have people who can make great films.
Yeah.
Then what do you do? So then say, okay, we'll do what we are good at and we pick something else.
Yes.
So there's a lot of that, right? Whereas we in the digital world don't look at it that way. At least I haven't seen too many agencies.
Yeah, we used to look at it that way. Now, but we are evolving into larger set of things now.
Right.
Yeah.
But that's also because you only offered that service at that
yes,
time, right?
yes. Well, no. So I mean, for sure. Like, but the lens was that we are gonna do one thing really great, right?
Okay, so I'll tell you the difference of this is.
Yeah.
For example, a lot of some of the traditional agency business heads that I know that the world is changing to digital, and that is the thing that you probably bet for the future. But they don't have that capability right now.
Yes.
So they go and say that, hey, you need to do TVC. You get the difference?
Yeah.
So like I'm talking about that.
No, 100%. They are incentivized to sell
Yeah.
rather than providing customer experience.
100%.
Yeah. If it comes from the lens of customer experience, it's a long-term game.
Yeah.
If it's not, so that's where we'll become bigs, right? We'll become the giants. Like these 5 names you took, they're not gonna be the biggest always, right? There will be company which will have new approach, new way of thinking, and it will come and it will become the biggest. So
Yeah. I think there are already so many examples I see of young entrepreneurs who are building out agencies and like refreshing approach.
Yes. 100%.
So I think there's a lot to be done in that. So that's again something that I'm trying to do, which is constantly look out for newer folk who can come into the team and influence, or who can bring that particular thing that we probably don't have yet. So I think, it's super exciting.
Incredible, dude.
Yeah. You've gone on to hire folks from big agencies, right?
I'm hiring them now.
Right.
Yes.
What's your early feelers? What has been your thought process in terms of?
I like it. I think there's definitely a learning curve. I think there is a lot of institutionalization which has gone, and they think in a certain manner.
Right.
Not bad, but
is there an example? Non-confidential example.
No, 100%. No, I'm okay talking. Like you come with the idea that this is how something works, right? And that's how you have seen the world operating. But then you start seeing how insane operates, and slowly you start becoming that. So that's a challenge. There is a learning curve. It takes time, but what's wonderful about it is that they come with the experience we don't have. So like great ideas emerge from the diversity and the experiences people have, and with the diverse range of experiences, the ideas can be diverse. So once they sink in well, suddenly the whole phenomena changes.
Right.
Yeah. So that period is very hard though, because they are feeling left out. They don't know what to do. They feel they might not fit. They think about maybe company will fire me, and same the other way around, right? I'm at least thinking that this guy will not work. How will we make it happen? But then as the time progresses, do you build a sync with them, and you start figuring out that ground where they really add value and you are able to.
Right.
So I think that experience is not replaceable. Someone who, for example, copywriter, someone who has written in paper, will come and think from the perspective of paper. But you got to educate them about social, consistently talk about it, how it works. And you talk to them for 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, 5 months, 6 months. And suddenly whole customer psychology understanding will come into social, and they'll start producing amazing work.
Right.
So that's been my experience until now, but
nice.
I'm curious about it more.
Yeah. In terms of so the journey you're on right now is what I think I started with in 2017. I keep calling it the art and the math philosophy.
Yes, that's the last topic. Yes.
Yeah, you're counting down to it, I think. So when I started out, my thought process was that there is no point in creating great communication if you're not getting it out to the right people, right? So, and I thought digital platforms helped you do this.
Right.
And I looked at it that way. Over time, my understanding of it was refined through just reading up, educating myself, and I today call it the art into math philosophy, which is that modern day marketing is 2 Venn diagrams. One's art, one's math, and they come together as the world becomes increasingly connected through digital and technological devices, and I think they blend into one.
Right.
But today they are 2 different, and then they're coming together, and it's happening quite fast.
Right.
So I feel that the intersection of the two is where the magic happens in modern day marketing.
Yes.
And I said, as an organization, Virality will be there in the intersection, and that's our ethos. So, and it's been good to see how the world
ethos?
Philosophy.
Sure.
So I think that's where I think we are in terms of as an organization, and I see the industry moving that way.
Right,
when, for example, you're doing it now. But I know the journey you would be on, and I've seen it here for the last 7 years, right?
Yes,
and I think there's interesting to see even big agencies adopt that.
Yes.
So WPP was essentially the biggest agency in the world for years together. They owned Ogilvy, JWT, a bunch of others. In 2018, their founder quit over some financial problems, allegations, whatever. Publicly traded company, so he left. And when he left, they were at around 22 billion market cap.
Shit.
And he went and started another agency called S4 Capital. So S4 Capital's ethos is we are truly digital and we'll combine data, tech, and data, which is media, tech, and creativity. The
Right.
three holy grail, which I think is the future. We don't do tech, but I think that is the future.
Yes.
And he started out S4. S4 from 2018 till today has hit a value market cap of 5 to 6 billion, something like that, or 7.
Shit, wow.
Whereas WPP from 22 has fallen to something like 11 or 12. So they were number 1, they're number 4 now, right? This is what change in leadership does. But anyway, so I think the world is also moving in that direction of combining the two. And it's going to be interesting to sort of live through the marketing age where a writer and a media buyer can actually work together in tandem
Yes.
without having to compromise. So today I feel the way the industry is built, and I don't know how much of that you have experienced, but I have, which is everyone comes with preconceived notion, right, of how it's done, and they're at loggerheads. And especially when they're not in the same organization, which is what today's reality in the market is. So I think that's changing. So it's going to be very interesting to sort of combine these two and see how quickly a writer and a media buyer can sort of
Work together.
in tandem, right? And you've seen this already where now we do this even in the podcast, and I'm sure you do this for your clients too, to sell one particular piece, a course or a communication, you suddenly need multiple creative iterations
Yes.
for various reasons, right? And with AI, I think that's going to basically become easier to do.
Sure.
But I think that's the world in the future,
Yes. 100%.
right?
Yes.
And I think, been through that journey in terms of educating this from day one.
Yes.
What has been your initial sort of, I would say, challenge, if at all anything, in combining these two worlds, if you've had anything at all?
No, I mean, it's extremely challenging, I think. There is a constant fight between people that
Tell me about it.
I have the best idea, and then you have to create the environment where people want to push the greatest idea. So it's entire my job role, right? Like this guy asked me that, what do you do? And I couldn't answer because I didn't know. Right. So I think that's my biggest work, what you're saying, that to bring people together and to make sure that we talk, like the creative leads, media buying leads, if they can really bring their best out and talk and work together. That's gonna be incredibly transformative, but it's not as easy, right? Like everyone want to push their own agendas, and which is fair. Like we feel our ideas are the best ideas. Every human does that. But yeah, I mean, if you're specifically asking for what are the challenges, those are the same challenges people have, right? Like conflicts.
Have you figured a easy hack, like any young entrepreneur trying to do the same? Do you have any advice that you think is like best way to sort of tackle it?
Conversations, talk, like do a lot of casual meets. Don't make work. I'm a big fan of going out with the team, chilling with the team.
Do you do that across levels, or is it
Across
only
levels.
certain people?
So I would definitely spend more time with the people I work with, but then if we are doing a party, I'll talk to everyone. I'll spend enough time, try to understand where they are in the work life. There is no strategy in this. It's just talking. If that makes sense.
Yeah, it does.
Just go and talk, and the problems have the way to reveal themselves, and if people talk, then solve itself.
What's next for Insane? Like, how do you chart out goals, or are these thoughts in your head, or do you like write it down and say we want to get to this point?
So Insane is transformating into a company which will be driven by love uh, and and ideas. That is the next goal, to build that kind of environment in people. I don't see a lot in terms of numbers. Numbers are outcome of doing the right things. So we want to provide great experience, build great team, uh, do great work, and and simply, um, and everything else will happen automatically. So, uh, and I even don't have an idea right now where Insane can go, because somehow yesterday night we all were convinced that we should do an IP for Red Bull, where we bring Indian extreme sports to the market by venturing into organizing it and building the community around it. And this was like random discussion yesterday. So I have no fucking idea where we are going. What I'm not saying is that I don't have a vision, but like
It's flexible.
my job, yes, my job is to bring the best ideas out and execute it, and we're gonna talk a lot, take a lot of. So we might end up becoming IP company, we might end up becoming content company. So we're still exploring, but one thing is for sure: we in next 2 years will be known for producing great ads and great reels.
Nice.
So those two things is 100% gonna happen. Our reels will be shared by people. Our ads will be becoming benchmarks in the market.
Nice.
So that's for sure.
Great. Thanks a lot, Aman,
Yes.
for taking time out and doing this.
Yes,
Hopefully we'll do this again, and I think that time you can tell me how you've hit those numbers or the goals that you have.
Yes. No, definitely, dude. Interesting to know your story, dude.
Oh,
Yeah,
did I share so much today? Oh,
You did.
Oh,
We never sat a lot, dude. We should.
really? Actually, we haven't sat at a stretch like this.
Yes.
It's always been in motion, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
We should,
but-
dude.
Yeah, done.
Yeah.
Maybe you start a podcast, I'll come on that.
Oh, wow. I started a podcast.
Yeah.
100%. Not
Those-
there yet, but yes.
Yeah, maybe turn your house into the studio.
Studio.
Like you keep getting people over.
Oh, yeah.
Start recording them.
Yeah, come over. We'll do podcast without mics.
Done. Chalo.